Okay, these are the notes for Math 1140, Career Math. This is Chapter 5, and this is only sections 5.1 and 5.2. So we're going to talk about adding and subtracting what we call signed numbers here, integers. Okay, so again, objectives listed at the top, and a brief explanation of why we have negative numbers. So we have to be able to represent quantities less than zero. Now, for a long time, there wasn't even a zero. They didn't feel the need to numerically identify a nothing. But with nothing comes things that are less than zero. Okay? So notice something on the number line. The digits are the same to the left and the right. They count out from zero. So the smaller the digit in size, what we consider smaller, closer to zero it is. So to the right, with the positive numbers, they count the way we expect them to, going up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. To the left, the smaller digits are actually larger. Okay. So when we compare, just like when we compared positive numbers, anything further to the right is going to be larger. So by default, any positive number is greater than going to be greater than the negative. So -7 is less than 9. For B, 0 is to the right of -1, so 0 is larger than -1. For C, if we look at these, -4 is further left than -2. So -4 is smaller than -2. -4 is less than -2. And -2 is less than 0. We do need to make a distinction between positive and non-negative. So if a number is positive, if x is positive, x is strictly greater than 0. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Strictly greater than x is positive. Notice that positive does not include 0. If I want to include 0, then I'm going to say x is non-negative. It's anything that is not a negative. So it could be 0, it could be a positive number. And this works with negatives the same way. We could have a value that is negative or a value that is not positive. Okay. Next up is absolute value. Absolute value is definitely something that we use every day. We just don't call it the absolute value. So our absolute value is distance from 0. And when we talk about distance, distance has to always be positive. So it doesn't matter if you walk forward or backwards, you cover the same amount of territory. You cover that same distance. So our absolute value is always positive. We're not thinking opposite. Positive, I should say non-negative, because if you take a look at D, the absolute value of 0, the distance from 0 is going to be 0. So non-negative. Absolute value of -4. If we go back up here to where -4 is, I'm talking about distance from 0. -4 is 4 units from 0. The absolute value of -4 is +4. If I take a look at B, that absolute value of 3, here's my 3. Again, distance from 0 does not matter which direction I'm going. That's going to be 3. And C, absolute value of -34. Notice I threw in a number here that was way off of the number line. We still know that is going to be 34 units away from 0. Okay. So really quick, before we go on to actually adding and subtracting, what does that little minus symbol mean? It actually has 3 meanings. It means subtract. We are used to that. It means negative. It also means opposite. As in the opposite of 8 we're going to write the opposite of 8. That's negative 8. If I want the opposite of negative 11, again, there's my opposite of negative 11. I know the opposite of negative 11 is positive 11. Okay, so we use those interchangeably. Sometimes we talk about subtract, sometimes we talk about adding the opposite or adding the negative. They're all different versions of the same thing.